Edward Van Halen was such an iconic guitar hero. He was such an incredibly immense figure in the guitar world. Just his presence, his music, everything about what he did was just incredible. And he did it with a smile all the time. Every time you saw him, he just had this huge beaming smile, right? Jumping around stage and just looking awesome and sounding just incredible. He's inspired generations of guitar players, and kids these days are still inspired by him. Maybe not directly, but their heroes and their heroes were inspired by what Edward did. I certainly was inspired by what he did. I know my heroes were inspired by what he did as well. One of the most iconic things about Edward Van Halen was the guitars. Yeah, and in particular, Frankenstrat or Frankie. It is, I think, the most iconic rock style guitar that there ever was, and probably there ever will be, because it just represented something so much more than just Edward Van Halen. And I'm going to be talking to you about what it actually represents to me, and this is going to be a slightly different take on it from what everybody else talks about, because to me it's not just about it being a Strat with a humbucker in it and a Floyd Rose, which it is, and it was very innovative, but I think it represents a whole lot more. But I'm going to give you a very brief history of the guitar. Now, before I tell you all about the guitar, if you enjoy contents like this, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification. It's so appreciated, and it's totally free. And a huge shout out to my Patreon and YouTube members as well. All right, let me tell you about this. Now, I'm not a huge authority on the guitar. There are guys out there who have absolutely trawled through all of the information, and they know so much more about the guitar, but I will give you a very brief history. The Van Halens were immigrants to the USA. They weren't a wealthy family, so Edward didn't have masses of money to go out and buy the latest gear. Just to put this into context, in the mid-70s, a Fender Stratocaster used to cost around $400 or $500, and the Gibson Les Paul about $750,000. Now, in today's money, that translates to about $2,500 for a Fender Strat, what? Or about $5,000 for a Gibson Les Paul. So they were expensive guitars. Now, obviously, used gear was out there and it was attainable. But what Edward did was genius. He actually bought the parts for the guitar. So he bought a body and neck, and he actually sourced them from Wayne Charvel and Lynn Ellsworth. And the body and neck that he actually acquired were seconds. They were basically in the discarded bin because there was a knot in the body apparently. And he bought them for $130. So just to put it into context, a Strat was 3 times more, well, more than that, more than 3 times more than what he paid for the body and neck. So in today's money, that would be around $700 that he paid for the body and neck. And then he basically created his own guitar. Originally, it was the black and white guitar. There's some debate as to who actually inspired that color scheme. It could have been the Distill movement from the Netherlands, where he originated from, the art movement. It could have been from the hot rod movement from Pasadena, where he lived. And most likely it was inspired by Chip Kinman, the guitar player from the Dills, because he actually had a white Les Paul, which he put electrical tape around and basically created stripes. And the first version of Frankie was actually black and white. Eddie painted it black, and then he put tape around it, and then he sprayed it white, and then took the tape off so that it was black and white striped. So that was the first iteration of the guitar, and it's the one that we see on the Van Halen 1 record cover. And then eventually he did paint it red as well. The reasoning behind that was basically because people started copying it and he wanted it to be unique and individual to him. So basically taped it up again and then sprayed it red. And he actually used bicycle paint, a red bicycle paint, to actually create the red, white and black guitar. And what an iconic guitar. It is such an amazing instrument. So obviously it was innovative in terms of like putting a humbucker in the bridge. Previous to that, Strats were single coils and Gibson guitars had humbuckers in them. Humbuckers obviously sound a lot fatter than single coils, and Eddie wanted that kind of humbucker sound in a Strat. So he basically took a chisel to it, took some wood out of the bridge position pickup, and then he put a PAF pickup in there from Gibson ES355. Absolute genius, right? We do it all the time now. You know, this configuration of guitar, hey, you know, I have lots of them around. But back then, that was completely and utterly new. And yes, it was absolutely innovative what he did, because he brought those two ideas together, the Fender and the Gibson, and he mashed them together and created his own thing, which spawned a whole industry of super Strat guitars essentially. And originally he put the Gibson logo on the headstock of the guitar because he wanted to acknowledge the fact that it was a Fender and a Gibson all in one, which was fantastic. But for me, it's not just about him creating an individual instrument. For me, the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from this is just his innovative spirit. How he created the guitar. It wasn't an expensive guitar. I remember when I saw the guitar, the original Frankenstrat, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York in 2019. And I was looking around it, I was in total awe. And then I noticed the neck. And I thought, wow, that neck doesn't look expensive. Now, I've played a couple of Rockstar guitars from back in the day, and I was expecting them to be absolutely amazing, like a PRS guitar or something like that. And I held the neck and it was like, wow, I have guitars with necks which is just so much better, and they're much cheaper guitars as well. So what's going on with the necks? And that made complete sense, because he wasn't an extremely wealthy guy at the time. You know, he was a musician, he was just making his way, he hadn't got the record deal yet, and he was actually basically putting together stuff with the money that he had. And so the neck wasn't super expensive. But we can really take away from this that we can actually create instruments and noodle around with them and fix them up so that they are much better instruments, and there are individual instruments. I've done it so many times. In fact, I have a guitar company now called Spirit Darts Guitars, and I've just posted a video of the full build of this guitar, which is on this channel as well. But if you want to go and check out the full build video, then I will leave a link somewhere up here. I think it's in this corner, or is it this corner? Whichever corner it is, so that you guys can go and check it out. And please do give the channel a sub as well, because I'm trying to build it up and it's so much appreciated. And in fact, in the studio here, I have over 20 guitars which I have either built myself from parts or I've modified. That's crazy. Pretty much my entire collection is stuff that I have fiddled with at some point. And I started this many years ago. In fact, the first proper guitar that I had was an Ibanez RG560, and when I got it, it was completely stripped out. It was just a blank body and a neck, and all the paint had been stripped off and stuff, and I basically made it what it is now, which is basically a snakeskin finish. And it was a piece of fabric that I used in order to create the snakeskin finish on the top, then did a black burst around the sides and stuff, and it just looked amazing. It was something that I did way back in like the year 2000 or something. It's like, you know, over 20 years ago that I did that. And since then I have been putting together guitars. In fact, one of the guitars which I used on this channel so much, my ESP Spirit Dance, the one with the snakeskin pick guard on it, I basically built that from parts which I got from eBay, and then I created my own thing. I created my own vision from that guitar, and I keep doing that, and it's a wonderful thing to do. I think every guitar player should do it. It should be like building a lightsaber for a Jedi. You know, it's a rite of ascension into guitar playing, into guitardom. It's an amazing process, and you have such a unique and individual instrument at the end of it. And hey, you know, you can build up a pretty awesome collection of guitars. Not from expensive parts. You know, most of these guitars cost me a few $100 to actually build. And yes, I do have expensive guitars in here as well, but that balances out with the cheaper guitars as well. And this was the whole thing about what Eddie did. He didn't have a whole heap of money to spend on the initial guitar, so he basically did it from the budget that he had, and he created something really, really special. So that innovative spirit lives on in a lot of us, because whenever we modify a guitar, whenever we're changing it, whenever we're putting a sticker on it or painting it or doing something to it, it's actually that spirit which Eddie started. You know, if you take a chisel or a router to a guitar which has single coils on it, but you want a humbucker in it, hey, you know, you're basically edifying it. There you go. I've coined the new phrase, edifying the guitar, because we all want to edify the guitars, because he was an incredible figure. So that's what he represents to me. It's that inspiration that he had and how he came up with all of these ideas by basically thinking about this bit I like and then this bit I like. What if I actually matched them together? The same thing with this Marshall amp. The brown sound came about because he needed to lower the volume, so he kind of figured, well, all right, less voltage, let's do it with a variac, and that created the brown sound, which is just, you know, it's still chased after these days. And he did it out of necessity, and it was how his mind worked. It was that innovation. It was that innovative spirit. It was in here and it was in here. It wasn't just about what everything was out here. Because he could have gone out and just bought a Fender amp and a Fender guitar or a Gibson guitar and a Marshall amp or whatever and just left it at that, which a lot of people did, right? No. The other thing that it represents was that whole thing about being an individual. And when I built this guitar, I actually took that to heart as well, because there were a couple of things I was scratching my head about, because I was thinking, well, do I want to do an exact copy of the guitar? I would have loved to have had that. But then I realized, well, Eddie actually wanted an individual instrument. He wanted it to be his own, which is why he painted it red after, you know, black and white stripes, because other people were doing it and he wanted to individualize what he did. So I actually made some changes to the guitar, and it was a week's worth of kind of scratching my head and dilemmas and kind of feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be changing this design. But eventually I did. You know, I used a different bridge on it. It's a shallow bridge rather than a Floyd Rose, and it's exactly the same thing. It's a billet plate and it's fantastically built. It's a Lockmeister bridge. The detuner on it is not the EVH detuner. It's by a company called Tonevice, and it's fantastic. It's very, very discreet and it's tiny. Then the headstock's a little bit different. I burnt it as per my Spirit Dance guitars. And also the heel on mine is actually cut down, because that's how I like to have my guitars. Obviously on the original Frankenstrat it was just a square heel, and the copies of the guitar have a square heel as well. But this was my guitar, you know, I did everything as per how I liked it. I even shaved the neck down to my perfect profile. You know, I made it an individual Frankenstrat guitar. Frankie guitar. And even with the pickup, instead of going for the same style that would have been on the original guitar, a PAF style pickup, I actually went for a hotter output pickup. It's the Pariah Pasadena black pickup, which is one of my absolute favorite pickups. I love Pariah pickups. And I could have gone for the Pasadena white, which would have been closer to the one that was in the original Frankenstrat, but I wanted the hotter output, you know, and it works for me. I even have a coil split on it on a push-pull pot here, so I can actually get some single coil sounds out of this as well. But that actually made it my individual Frankenstrat guitar. One other little thing that I did was the little quarter there. I actually didn't put a 77 quarter in there, I put a 73. Why? Because that's the year of my birth. So this is properly my Frankie guitar, and we can really take away from that, you know, to actually individualize the stuff that we're doing. He wanted to take it a step further, and you know, whether we're writing music, whether we're playing music, whether we're actually kind of just being inspired by something, we should always strive for that, right? We should always be trying to take it a step forward. So take that away from today's video. I know I'm talking about the guitar, and I'm going to give you some music in a second on this guitar. But take that away, that you can include some of that innovative spirit in whatever you're doing. I know I do it all the time when I'm writing music, building a guitar, building an amp. I'm always thinking like that, and I'm so glad, and I am so grateful to Edward Van Halen for giving that to the world, to all of us guitar players, to the music community as well. If you love videos like this, please do hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, because I will be bringing you more. And also have a wonderful day. I'm going to give you some music on Frankie now. Enjoy, and I'll see you really soon with another video. Have a great day, guys. Bye. Frankie.
Yeah. Frankie. I love this guitar.